The alien empire of Velthar believed in perfection above all things. Every citizen was measured, tested, and ranked from the moment they were born. Strength, intelligence, loyalty, and most important of all, fertility. To them, the future mattered more than the present, and the future was built through children who carried strong bloodlines. Princess Celira was born into the highest bloodline of all. From a young age, she was kind, curious, and thoughtful. She listened more than she spoke and preferred learning about stars and history instead of court games and power struggles. But none of that mattered to the Velthari Council. What mattered was that she could not produce an heir. Their doctors tested her again and again. Machines older than human civilization scanned her body in perfect detail. The final result never changed. Infertile, impossible, a failure of nature. The word followed her everywhere. Whispers filled the palace halls. Nobles bowed with polite smiles but cold eyes. Servants avoided meeting her gaze. To the empire, a princess without children was worse than useless. She was a symbol of weakness. Her parents were gone, lost in a border war years ago. Without them, Celira had no shield. The council decided her fate without asking her opinion. "She still has diplomatic value," one counselor said, his voice smooth and cruel. "We will send her to the humans." Laughter echoed through the chamber. Humans were new to the galactic stage, weak technology, short lives, emotional. Their soldiers relied on instincts instead of calculated precision. To the Velthari, humans were a curiosity, nothing more. Sending the infertile princess to a human was the perfect joke. They called it a diplomatic gesture, a gift. In truth, it was exile. Celira stood alone on the transport ship, her hands folded tightly in front of her. She wore no royal jewels, only a simple robe. No guards accompanied her. No farewell ceremony was held. As the ship entered human-controlled space, fear settled deep in her chest. She had heard stories. Humans were unpredictable, violent, primitive. She had been taught that humans consumed animal flesh without shame and solved disputes with fists and weapons. If they knew she was useless even to her own people, what would they do to her? The ship landed on a small human colony whirled at the edge of explored space. Dust and metal filled the air. Buildings were functional, not beautiful. Everything looked worn but alive. A single human waited at the landing zone. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing simple military clothing marked with faded symbols. His hair was dark, his face rough, but his eyes were calm. He did not stare at her like an object. He simply watched, alert but respectful. "This is her?" he asked the alien escort in plain galactic trade speech. "Yes," the escort replied. "Princess Celira of Velthar, she is now under human authority." The escort turned and left without another word. Celira's heart pounded. She waited for chains, orders, demands. The human stepped forward and lowered his weapon, placing it on the ground. "My name is Daniel Hayes," he said. "You're safe here, safe." No one had said that to her in years. He did not touch her, did not bow or kneel. He spoke to her as if she were simply another person standing in front of him. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's get you inside, it's cold out here." The colony was small but busy. Humans moved with purpose. Some glanced at her with curiosity, others with caution, but none with hatred. Children ran past laughing. Workers waved at Daniel as they passed. "She's an alien," a young human whispered nearby. Daniel looked at the child. "She's our guest, be polite." "Yes, sir," the child replied before running off. Celira watched this exchange in silence. In Velthar society, children never spoke freely, and soldiers never corrected civilians so kindly. Daniel brought her to a modest living space near the colony's medical center. It was clean, warm, and private. "You can stay here," he said. "No one will bother you." She finally found her voice. "Why are you doing this?" He paused, then shrugged. "Because it's the right thing to do." That answer confused her more than anything else. Over the next days, Celira observed human life closely. Daniel checked on her often but never invaded her space. He answered her questions honestly, even when they revealed human weaknesses. He explained that humans were not united like the Velthari Empire. They argued, failed, and learned through mistakes. "We don't always get it right," he admitted one evening, "but we try." Human doctors asked to examine her, not with cold efficiency but with curiosity and care. They explained each step, asking for her consent. Their tools were simpler than Velthari machines, yet their understanding of biology was flexible, open to uncertainty. When they reviewed her medical history, the doctors exchanged looks. "This diagnosis is absolute," one said slowly. "No room for error." "Our science does not allow doubt," Celira replied. The doctor frowned. "That's usually where problems start." Days turned into weeks. Celira helped where she could, learning simple tasks. Humans welcomed her efforts. For the first time, she felt useful not because of her bloodline but because of her actions. At night, she stared at the unfamiliar stars and wondered if the council ever thought of her again. To them, she was gone. The joke was over, but inside her something had changed. She felt lighter, stronger, and for the first time in her life she felt hope. She did not yet know that the galaxy itself was about to be proven wrong. Part 2. 1600 words Kaleko or interesting Hunachea or third-person style, Ma Lekni Ha or simple basic English Ka or violated free Honachai without short-heading life on the human colony moved at a steady, honest pace. Celira noticed this first. There were no grand ceremonies, no endless rules spoken in cold voices. Humans woke up, worked, argued, laughed, and rested. Their lives were imperfect but real. At first, Celira remained quiet. Old habits were hard to break. In Velthar, speaking too much invited judgment. Saying the wrong thing could ruin one's future. So she watched, listened, and learned. Daniel Hayes made sure she was never treated like a prisoner. He explained colony rules clearly and simply. She was free to move, free to refuse, free to choose. That freedom frightened her more than chains ever had. One morning, she followed Daniel to the outer repair fields. Wind carried dust across metal platforms where humans fixed machines by hand. No perfect systems here. Tools were old, patched, and reused. "Why don't you replace these with new ones?" Celira asked. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead. "Because these still work, and if they break, we fix them." She thought of Velthar factories, where even small flaws meant total replacement. Waste was accepted as the cost of perfection. Here, nothing was wasted, not time, not effort, not people. Some humans were suspicious of her. They had lost friends to alien wars. They knew what empires could do, but Daniel's trust protected her. Slowly, others followed his lead. A woman named Maria taught Celira how to grow food in the colony's greenhouses. The plants were fragile, unpredictable, and stubborn. Celira failed many times. "You can't force life," Maria said with a smile. "You guide it." That sentence stayed with Celira. At night, Daniel sometimes sat across from her during meals. They spoke about small things, weather, old Earth stories, lost battles. "You don't talk much about your home," Daniel said once. Celira lowered her eyes. "There is nothing left for me there." Daniel did not push. He simply nodded. Humans respected silence in a way Velthari never had. Medical checkups continued. Human doctors requested more tests, more scans, more discussions. They disagreed openly with each other, argued theories, and admitted uncertainty. Celira found this shocking. In Velthar science, disagreement meant incompetence. One doctor finally spoke carefully. "Your species relies heavily on artificial regulation, hormonal control, genetic suppression. It's possible something was turned off, not broken." "Impossible," Celira replied automatically. The doctor met her gaze. "That's what they told you, not what nature always agrees with." That night, Celira could not sleep. Her mind returned to palace halls, cold scanners, final judgments. What if they were wrong? What if she had never been broken at all? Weeks passed. Salira grew more comfortable among humans. She learned their humor, their patience, their stubborn refusal to give up. She saw how humans mourned their dead, not with silence but with stories and shared pain. One day Daniel returned injured from a patrol. Nothing serious, but blood stained his uniform. Salira froze at the sight. Velthari culture avoided blood. It was a sign of failure. Daniel laughed when he saw her face. "Relax, I've had worse." She helped clean the wound, her hands shaking. "Why do you fight so much?" she asked. "Because someone has to stand in the way," he said simply. That answer felt familiar. Once she had believed the same about her royal duty. Time changed her body slowly, quietly. At first she thought it was stress, fatigue, human food. Then the sickness came in waves, lightheadedness, sensitivity to smells, weakness in the mornings. She hid it, afraid of disappointment, afraid of hope, until one day she collapsed in the greenhouse. Doctors rushed her to the medical center. Daniel waited outside, fists clenched. Tests were run again. Silence filled the room, human silence heavy with careful thought. Finally, the lead doctor spoke, voice steady but shaken. "She's pregnant." The words felt unreal. Salira stared at the screen. Her mind refused to accept it. "No," she whispered, "that cannot be." But the data remained, clear, undeniable. Human science had not forced life. It had simply allowed it. Fear replaced shock. The Empire would not ignore this. A child meant power. A child meant claims, control, ownership. Daniel entered the room. One look at their faces told him everything. "She's alive?" he asked. "Yes," the doctor replied, "both of them." Daniel sat down slowly. He did not celebrate. He understood the danger immediately. "They can't find out," he said. Salira felt tears burn her eyes. "They will come, they always do." Daniel met her gaze. "Then we'll be ready." Word spread quietly through the colony. Humans reacted not with fear but determination. They adjusted patrols, scrambled signals, prepared shelters, not because she was a princess, because she was one of them now. Salira rested, hands pressed against her abdomen, feeling something she had been denied her entire life. Proof that she was not broken, proof that her people had failed her. Above the colony, stars burned silently. And somewhere far away, an empire that believed it knew everything remained unaware that its greatest mistake was growing stronger with every passing day. The colony changed after the truth came out. It did not change loudly. There were no alarms or public announcements. Humans understood danger well enough to respect silence. Patrols increased quietly. Ships adjusted their flight paths. Communication towers reduced outgoing signals. The colony became careful, alert, and united. Salira felt the shift even while resting in the medical center. At first, fear ruled her thoughts. Every shadow felt like an enemy ship. Every strange sound made her heart race. The Velthari Empire did not forgive mistakes, and it never ignored power. A child born from a failed princess would shake the foundations of their belief system. Daniel visited her often. He sat nearby, sometimes speaking, sometimes not. His presence alone gave her strength. "You don't regret this?" she asked him one evening, her voice quiet. "Regret what?" he replied. "Protecting me, risking your people." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "They already decided to throw you away. That's on them. This," he gestured gently toward her. "This is life. We protect that." She closed her eyes, holding back tears. Human doctors monitored her closely. They documented every change, every reaction between human and Velthari biology. They worked carefully, knowing this knowledge could reshape galactic medicine. But they also knew knowledge could be stolen. One night, the early warning sensors picked up a faint signal at the edge of the system. Alien, not Velthari warships, smaller, faster, scouts. Daniel received the report while on patrol. His jaw tightened. "They've started looking," he said. The colony council gathered in a secure room. Humans from different backgrounds stood together: soldiers, scientists, farmers, engineers. None of them had asked for this conflict, yet none stepped away. "We can hide for a while," one engineer said, "but not forever." "They won't stop," another added. "That child changes everything." Celira insisted on attending despite her condition. She stood slowly, supported by Daniel, and faced the room. "I will not run forever," she said. "If they come, they will not see a broken princess. They will see the truth." Some humans worried. Facing an empire head-on was dangerous, but hiding forever was worse. Days passed. Scouts came closer, then closer still. Velthari ships finally entered the system. They sent a formal message. "Return Princess Celira and all biological assets immediately." The words were cold, demanding. Daniel responded calmly, "She's under human protection." There was a pause. Then laughter crackled through the channel. "You cannot protect what you do not understand," the Velthari commander replied. Celira listened from the medical center, hands resting protectively on her abdomen. Fear whispered in her mind, but it no longer controlled her. The Velthari ships landed outside the colony's defensive perimeter. Soldiers in perfect armor marched forward, their movements precise and emotionless. Celira walked out to meet them. Daniel tried to stop her. "You don't have to." "I do," she said. "This began with me." She stood tall despite her fear. The Velthari commander stared at her in shock. "You live," he said. "Yes," Celira replied, "and I carry life." Murmurs spread among the Velthari ranks. Scanners activated. Silence followed. "This is impossible," the commander said sharply. "You declared it impossible because it did not fit your rules," Celira answered. "Humans do not live by those rules." The commander turned toward Daniel. "Hand her over. The child belongs to the Empire." Daniel stepped forward. "No one belongs to you." Weapons raised on both sides. For a moment, war felt inevitable. Then Celira spoke again, her voice steady. "You made me a joke," she said. "You sent me away to disappear. Instead, you showed me something your empire forgot." She placed a hand on her chest. "Life does not obey pride." The Velthari commander hesitated. He had orders, but he also had eyes. He saw human defenses ready. He saw determination. And for the first time, doubt. "This changes nothing," he said finally. "The council will come." "Then let them," Celira replied. The Velthari ships withdrew for now. The colony did not celebrate. Everyone knew this was only the beginning. That night, Celira dreamed of stars and voices. She felt the child move for the first time, a small, undeniable motion. She smiled through tears. Daniel sat nearby, watching over her. "They'll come back stronger," he said quietly. "So will we," she answered. Across the galaxy, messages spread. Whispers reached neutral worlds. An infertile princess, a human colony, a child that should not exist. Empires feared what they could not control, and humanity had just proven that even the most absolute truths could be wrong. Far beyond the colony, the Velthari Council gathered in silence. For the first time in generations, their perfect science had failed. And the consequences were still growing. The Velthari Council did not sleep after the scouts returned. Perfect beings were not meant to feel fear, yet fear crept into the chamber like a living thing. Holographic images hovered in the air, showing scans, recordings, and impossible data. Princess Celira, alive, pregnant, protected by humans. "This violates natural law," one counselor said. "No," another replied coldly. "It violates our assumptions." For generations, Velthar ruled through certainty. Their science gave answers, not questions. Their power came from believing they were always right. Now a single child threatened that belief. "The humans must be controlled," the High Counselor declared. "Prepare a full diplomatic fleet. If diplomacy fails, we reclaim what is ours." Back on the human colony, the air felt heavy. Celira sensed it before any sensor alarm sounded. Her body had changed. Her awareness felt sharper, instincts stronger. The child within her was calm, steady, alive. That alone gave her courage. Human defenses were reinforced openly now. There was no more hiding. Ships docked. Supplies were moved underground. Families were relocated to shelters carved deep into rock. Daniel worked without rest. He coordinated patrols, trained volunteers, and spoke with leaders from nearby human systems. News had spread faster than expected. Humans were coming. Not just soldiers, but doctors, scientists, and diplomats. They wanted to see the truth with their own eyes. They wanted to stand where one of their own had stood and said no to an empire. Celira watched the activity from a balcony overlooking the colony. She felt guilt twist in her chest. "All this because of me," she said quietly. Daniel stood beside her. "All this because they chose cruelty." She looked at him. "If they demand the child, would you give up everything for us?" He did not answer right away. Then he said, "I already have." The Velthari fleet arrived days later. This time they did not send scouts. Massive ships filled the sky, their hulls shining like cold stars. Smaller vessels spread out, blocking escape routes. It was overwhelming force, meant to crush resistance before it began. A message was broadcast on every channel. "Princess Celira, you are ordered to return to Velthar immediately. The human colony will not interfere." Celira stepped forward before anyone could stop her. "I will speak to them," she said. Daniel clenched his jaw. "Not alone." So they went together. A neutral meeting platform was established between fleets. Transparent shields surrounded it. Weapons were powered but silent. The High Counselor himself appeared on the screen, his expression controlled, his eyes sharp. "Celira," he said, "you shame your bloodline." She met his gaze without lowering her head. "You abandoned me." "That is irrelevant," he replied. "The child is now relevant." Gasps echoed softly among Velthari observers as her condition was confirmed visually. Their composure cracked just for a moment. "The child will be returned to Velthar," the counselor continued. "It will be studied, preserved, used for the future of the Empire." Celira felt anger rise like fire. "You speak of my child as if it is an object." Daniel's voice cut in. "That's because you don't see people. You see resources." The counselor turned his gaze to Daniel. "Human, you are insignificant." Daniel did not flinch. "Then why bring an entire fleet?" Silence followed. Celira stepped forward, placing both hands on the barrier between them. "You declared me infertile because your systems demanded control. Humans showed me something else. They allowed life to choose." "Enough," the counselor snapped. "This discussion is over." Velthari weapons powered up. Human defenses responded instantly. For a single breath, the galaxy balanced on the edge of war. Then something unexpected happened. A Velthari scientist spoke out of turn. "Counselor, the data from the human doctors aligns with the readings. Our suppression protocols may have caused this." The council chamber erupted. "You dare question perfection?" the counselor demanded. "I dare question failure," the scientist replied. That moment spread like fire. Other voices joined: doubt, fear, curiosity. The counselor cut the channel abruptly. Weapons did not fire. Instead, the Velthari fleet held position. Back on the colony, Celira felt a strange calm. The child shifted again, stronger this time. She smiled despite everything. "They are afraid," she said. Daniel nodded. "Good." Hours passed. Then a message arrived. "Princess Celira is invited to address the Velthari Council directly." It was a trap or an opportunity. Celira knew it could be her last chance. "I will go," she said. Daniel shook his head. "Not without protection." She touched his arm. "I don't need weapons, I need truth." Against every instinct, humans allowed her to go. A small escort followed, but Celira walked into the heart of Velthari power on her own feet. The council chamber looked exactly as she remembered. Cold, perfect, empty of warmth. She stood at the center alone. "You once measured my worth," she said calmly. "You found me lacking." The counselors watched in silence. "You sent me away to disappear. Instead, I learned something you forgot. Life is not a machine. It does not obey pride." She placed a hand over her abdomen. This child exists because humans accept uncertainty. They adapt, they care. The High Counselor's voice trembled with restrained fury. You would abandon your people for them. I would change my people for the future, she replied. Silence filled the chamber. Outside, fleets waited. Inside, the Empire cracked. And across the stars, humanity watched, knowing that whatever happened next would reshape the galaxy forever. The Velthari Council could not ignore the truth any longer. Every scan, every report, every human testimony confirmed it. Princess Celira lived, and she carried a child. The child was proof that their so-called perfect science had limits, that their rigid rules had failed. Pride and certainty, the twin pillars of their empire, trembled for the first time in generations. Back on the human colony, life had changed completely. What had started as a small, quiet settlement became a symbol of something larger. Scientists and diplomats arrived from nearby human systems, offering assistance, sharing knowledge, preparing defenses. Soldiers trained tirelessly, but the atmosphere was not fear, it was hope. The people had learned that protecting life, not controlling it, was the greatest power any being could have. Celira felt that power herself. Each day, she grew stronger in her resolve, calmer in her heart. The child moved within her, small but steady, a constant reminder that life could surprise even the most advanced civilizations. She watched Daniel coordinate patrols, manage supplies, and speak with human leaders. His steady presence anchored her, reminding her that courage and wisdom could coexist. I never imagined humans could be like this, she said one evening as she sat outside the medical center. The wind carried the scent of earth and plants. So flawed, yet so strong. Daniel smiled softly. Strength isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Weeks passed and the Velthari fleet hovered near the system, unable to act without risking open war. The council debated endlessly, their advisors disagreeing, some in awe, some in anger. The princess, who they had declared worthless, had turned the galaxy's assumptions upside down. Finally, they sent a delegation, scholars, generals, and diplomats, to negotiate. They expected fear, submission, and surrender. They did not expect Celira to meet them on neutral ground, standing tall and proud, her child growing strong inside her. You bring a human to defend you, the lead Velthari diplomat said, his voice tight with disbelief. Do you not fear your own people? I fear nothing, Celira replied, except losing what is alive. You sent me away as a joke. You underestimated life, and now you must learn humility. The humans present did not flinch. Soldiers stood ready, but none raised a weapon. The message was clear. They would defend her, not because of orders, not because of ambition, but because they understood value differently. Life mattered, not bloodlines or politics. The Velthari delegation struggled to maintain composure. Their scanners confirmed her words. The child's heartbeat was strong, the mother healthy. Their calculations had failed to predict this possibility. Their assumptions crumbled. One scientist, younger than most of the council, dared to speak. Perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps we do not understand life as humans do. The chamber fell silent. The words were a whisper, but they carried weight. Doubt spread like wildfire among the ranks. One by one, counselors reconsidered their stance. If they acted harshly now, they would appear tyrannical, short-sighted, and weak. Celira did not wait. She spoke plainly, clearly, without anger. I have lived among humans. I have learned from them. I will not return to a society that values me only for what I cannot give. But I will share what I have learned. Life is not property. Life is responsibility. Those who understand that will survive. The Velthari Council deliberated for days, unable to issue any direct orders. The humans used the time wisely, fortifying defenses, spreading word to other colonies, preparing the child's arrival safely. They knew the child represented more than hope. It represented a lesson in humility and courage. When the council finally responded, their message was careful, almost respectful. Princess Celira, you may remain with the humans. Your child will be recognized as royal but protected according to your wishes. Velthar acknowledges its misjudgment. The words were revolutionary. Celira's return was no longer a matter of obedience or exile. She had reclaimed her own life, and in doing so, she had reshaped the galaxy's understanding of power. Back on the colony, celebration was quiet but heartfelt. Humans who had watched her struggle had learned alongside her. Scientists studied the child's unique biology, soldiers trained with renewed purpose, and families shared meals under the stars, knowing that courage and compassion had won. Celira held her child for the first time in her own arms. Small, perfect in its way, it looked up at her with wide eyes. She felt a surge of love so deep it hurt, a bond no empire could quantify or control. Daniel stood beside her, steady and smiling, a quiet partner in every victory. "This child," Celira whispered, "is proof that life finds a way, even when all else fails." Daniel rested his hand on her shoulder. "And that humans find a way too." In the months that followed, the child grew strong, healthy, and curious. Celira taught it words, stories, and the ways of both human and Velthari life. She refused to let the child be confined to empire expectations. Instead, it learned that strength came from understanding, compassion, and resilience. The galaxy took notice. Other alien worlds who had once dismissed humans as weak began to study them, not for domination but for understanding. Humans became a symbol of adaptability, courage, and intelligence born from imperfection. Celira, once mocked as infertile, became a figure of inspiration. The Velthari Council, once unshakable, had learned a vital truth. Underestimating life, underestimating humans, was a mistake no empire could afford twice. Science alone could not measure courage, hope, or the will to survive. Those qualities had saved the princess, and they had reshaped the galaxy. Years later, Celira and Daniel watched the stars together with their child between them. Peace, fragile but earned, stretched across human and alien colonies alike. The child reached up, curious, touching the stars with tiny hands as if claiming them for the first time. "Do you see?" Celira asked softly. "The galaxy has changed because of one life, one choice." Daniel nodded, smiling. "And because humans never stop trying, no matter the odds." Celira held her child close, feeling the warmth, the heartbeat, the proof that even the smallest, most impossible life could become a force greater than empires. She understood now that courage and compassion were more powerful than technology, pride, or fear. And somewhere across the stars, whispers of the story spread. A princess sent away as a joke, a human soldier who refused to bow, and a child who reminded the galaxy that life itself could not be controlled. The empire that had laughed at her learned humility. The galaxy that had dismissed humans learned respect. And the child, born against every expectation, became a living symbol of hope, courage, and the undeniable truth. Underestimating humanity was the greatest mistake any civilization could make. For Celira, Daniel, and their child, the future was not dictated by laws, rules, or empires. It was dictated by choices, by protection, by understanding. And they would face it together, proving to the galaxy that life, human or alien, was worth fighting for, worth believing in, and worth celebrating. From that day forward, the stars felt different, brighter, alive. Humanity had not conquered through weapons or fear, but through resilience, compassion, and an unshakable refusal to accept the impossible as permanent. And somewhere deep in her heart, Celira knew this was only the beginning.